Welcome to another podcast with Tom Ward. Tom, today we're talking about AI. We've seen a lot of chatter, in the mortgage industry on this, and I think it's great to share your experiences, what you've done with AI to kind of enhance your business and really what you've seen in the mortgage industry. Share some of that with our people today. This could be a 5-hour conversation. Obviously, there's so much going on. People are talking about it all the time, and there's a lot of benefits to it. So, what we found with AI is a lot of the prompts and putting in the knowledge you have is enhanced by at least the version we have right now of ChatGPT. Can you talk a little bit about maybe your background, and we all know your background, but maybe the history and maybe the hesitation to some new tools? No one likes change, right? And this is change that, if embraced, is a positive thing. Can you talk a little bit about what you've heard recently and kind of your background and how this really can help our lenders, our branch managers in the mortgage industry?
It's interesting. I think you and I both watched the Dave Savage, Robert Stover interview talking about AI and ChatGPT, and I was intrigued by it. But most of you know that I'm old school, right? So it's just a matter of you start getting me to the area of AI and ChatGPT, and the technical side I really don't know, right? And that's where your I brought Tim on, as our technical guru that kind of guided me down the road, and he did the prompts. And what generated out of this was the 10 things we found to inhibit branch managers from understanding the P&L. Now, you talk about old school. I flash back to I think it was David Letterman talked about the top 10 reasons, whatever it was that he talked about. Started with 10, went to 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1. So that kind of dates me a little bit, but that just shows you, where I'm coming from is old school, right? As far as just being able to, and I'm sure we've got a lot of listeners on here that feel the same way, but it was pretty powerful. I was blown away by not only did it reinforce the fact of what we believe are some of the reasons, but it sprinkled in a few others that we had no idea, and it was just a great takeaway for me. Tim, why don't you go ahead and just tell them a little bit about, you don't have to go into all the detail, but a little bit about how it works and what you said, what you plugged into the prompts to be able to generate my list of 10.
I think it's, first of all, it's easy to be a part of it. So you go to ChatGPT, the website, you sign up, and once you have an account, it took a couple of days, when we set it up here for what we're doing, because there's such demand and they continue to improve upon it. But you set the account up, and then what you learn and hearing what we're saying today, we learned it from other people too, is it's all about the prompt. What question you give this artificial intelligence. It's going to give you some amazing responses, and it's going to give it to you in seconds, which blew us away. Right, Tom?
So, no doubt. Yeah. It's kind of scary for me.
It is. You got, years and years of experience, and then we'll tell you about what we put in there based on Tom's, knowledge, and then just what it enhanced. So you put the right question in, and that's the key. And we can share some of these, at another point, or if you're interested in kind of some of these prompts, you could always go to info@profitabilitycoach.com or tom@profitabilitycoach.com. We're always glad to share kind of the knowledge we learned, but it's about the prompts. It's about the quality of the question that you put in results and gives you the quality of the response, which really enhances your business, from a branch manager to just, anybody in the industry. So whether you're talking about marketing or talking how to generate more leads or talking about, how do I present myself to my lead sources, to my realtors, how can I add more value? So it's all about the prompts. So what Tom and I are going to share here is Tom's knowledge, the years of knowledge through a series of questioning in the industry, the mortgage industry, what everybody knows about on this call. But then we come to a point in our series of questions and prompts, and we ask ChatGPT, can you give us kind of the David Letterman idea, the top 10 reasons why a mortgage branch manager may not have an understanding of their P&L or financials? And I'll start with the first one here and kind of just give a brief and let Tom, bring his intelligence, not the artificial. So we're going to be artificial and the human intelligence combined, and let Tom answer with his portion of this. But, the number one that came out, lack of financial training or education many branch managers may not have formal education or training in finance or accounting, which can make it difficult for them to understand financial statements like the P&L. And it's like anything, everybody, right? We're good at what we do every day. And if it's not something you do as a top sales, a lender or loan officer, you come in to be a branch manager, it's not your basic skill set. You're a rock star over here, but when you come over here, some of these training pieces are not your wheelhouse, your background. So Tom, tell us about number one and how ChatGPT kind of just enhanced what you would say. And I think that's the key part, is the enhancement.
I've always believed that the branch manager's shortchanged as far as training is concerned. As a matter of fact, that's why we created the Branch Profitability Academy, because there's no real formal training. The typical sales path for a sales manager or a producing branch manager is top producer, and then they make them a manager. Well, but they didn't cover the whole P&L side of this, the formality of that. And let's face it, if you're a salesperson, you probably didn't major in finance or accounting, and you're good at sales, right? So that lack of formal training, I've always believed that. That's one of the reasons why I put out the Branch Profitability Academy, to be able to teach them a better way to be able to understand that. And what I think we do when we deconstruct that P&L is we make it simpler, right? It's just a matter of, we've made this English, right, for the non-finance and accounting man.
So what's funny is the response. So we're kind of going to go through this, kind of the question, then the response. So Tom gives it right there. Here's the ChatGPT kind of combined Tom Ward ChatGPT response. Their formal response is lack of education, offer training programs and resources to educate branch managers on financial management, such as accounting, budgeting, and financial statement analysis. And that's what Tom's been preaching for 20 some years, as far as the financial understanding your P&L. And I know we talked about it, and it's worth repeating again. You learned from your YPO group, right? The Jimmy Johns of the world. Jimmy John has in the sandwiches, right, Tom? Why these numbers are so important. This guy's a billionaire now from selling sandwiches. But what was the key thing, which is what ChatGPT is saying? Number one, to educate yourself on financial statements and understanding the P&L. Is that right?
I asked the question. I still remember the call, the first meeting, and I just asked these high-powered guys and girls, right? I just said, hey, how important do you think it is for you to be able to know your numbers from a financial standpoint? And I think unanimously they all said it is the most important thing. So all that did was confirm what an idiot I was for the first 7 years. And then YPO took over and kind of put it to the next level and said, okay, I guess I better get my act together here if I want to be able to grow this thing the way I think I should. So that was the big breakaway for me, was understanding from the real guys, and they were my mentors. And thank God they were there, because without them, I'm not sure we'd be having this conversation right now.
It's always that guidance, right? We always have our mentors and people we learn from over the years. And I'll say this, and I'll speak for you, Tom, because we've had these conversations. You've been lucky enough to be a part of YPO. You sat, in the seats next to these guys, learn from them. A lot of people don't have the advantage of being in the same room on the same, say YPO team as Jimmy John and these other, brilliant minds. But what you offer to them is what you've learned from that over the years in this mortgage industry, for them to be able to understand how important the numbers are, the P&L, as a branch manager. Is that right?
I think we're filling that void. I've always had the mindset that says, can I possibly mentor people and take I get a lot of compliments from people, and I think it's probably a God-given talent to take something complex and make it simple, right? So when I convert that P&L into 8 key performance indicators, everybody looks like, oh my gosh, you made it really simple for us to be able to understand it, number one. But number two, to be able to steer your organization based upon numbers rather than the other way around. I think that's what those guys have, kind of instilled in my head. And they were my mentors. And I'm trying to play that role here as we move forward with the membership with the Branch Profitability Academy.
So let's jump back to number 2. So remember, this is ChatGPT, AI, and Tom Ward combined with the correct prompts to give us the top 10 challenges for branch managers around the financial side. Number 2, and I'll just read it. Over-reliance on accounting staff. Some branch managers may rely too heavily on their accounting staff to handle financial matters without actively engaging in the process themselves. I've sat in accounting meetings with you, Tom, over the years, and with your CPA, and kind of, you have the relationship with them. But if you don't educate yourself, the over reliance on that staff leaves you a little bit of look into the back page and the bottom number to see, did I make money or did I lose money? And is that because everything in between is a little bit, glazed over eyes because they just want to see what happened at the end? Can you talk about over reliance on staff without knowing, the process yourself?
I think there was a part of me, and I think there's a part of most people that says, I'm paying good money for accounting people internally as well as externally for the audit, right? So you've got a CPA firm that's engaged in that, and that's their job. So there was a tendency for me to be able to say, well, I'm paying those guys to do it. I don't need to understand it. And I was completely wrong with that, based upon the feedback that I got from my YPO guys. But more importantly, I found myself to be a better leader of an organization based upon the fact of me being able to know the numbers. You can't BS me if I know the numbers. And I think it's oftentimes we have, everybody usually uses an accountant to do their taxes unless you're doing the short form. But, you ask the question, it says, can I do this? And they say, let me look into it. Oh, yeah, you can. It's like, why do I have to be the one to ask that question? Shouldn't you be the one? And their job is just to be able to do the accounting world. When you start asking questions like, I still remember raising capital to become a mortgage banker. And ultimately, I said, well, I was a C corporation, and it's over a lot of people's head, but you could have two classifications of stock. So I created a preferred stock and basically raise some capital to be able to become a mortgage banker and improve my net worth.
It sounds like, I always like to use the A word called anticipation. What it does is it empowers you to be able to anticipate. Your CPA, your accounting side, their job is to do their job and bring you the results of the numbers. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're a branch manager. And if you can't anticipate, it's the Tony Robbins thing I've learned years before. I think he tells a story where his grandson is playing video games, and he's the kids playing and they're all laughing, having fun, and they call the uncle in to come around and play. And Tony says, yeah, I'll play. And they played for 40 minutes laughing and having fun. He sits down and he in 3 seconds gets demolished. The kids are laughing at him, and he's like, okay. And they grab the remote again and play for another 40 minutes, and they give him another chance, and he plays, and it's not like 15 seconds, it's 9 seconds or whatever, and he's dead and he's gone. And the analogy there is they know the road ahead. They can anticipate the turns and what happens in that video game. He doesn't play video games, so he can't anticipate what's going on in that. As a branch manager, as an owner, what you're doing there in number 2 here is you're anticipating, you're able to ask the questions. It's really maybe not the CPA's job to do that, at least in this scenario we're talking about. And you can anticipate, and if you have that knowledge, it's important. You know what ChatGPT responds, and I want to ask your thoughts on this, Tom. The response on number 2 is similar because it's a combination of the two of you, but it's poor communication. Provide regular and clear communication regarding financial goals, expectations, and progress towards achieving them. Consider creating a financial dashboard or scoreboard that presents key financial metrics in an easy to understand format. Let me read that last sentence again, Tom. Consider creating a financial dashboard or scoreboard that presents key financial metrics in an easy to understand format. So tell me if you've ever created a financial dashboard that points out key metrics. Tell me about the ChatGPT response there.
It's we convert a complex P&L with our system, and we spit out, I guess you would call it a dashboard of 8 key performance indicators. And I've lived it for the last 15 years with companies and individuals where they can now steer their organization around the fact of now they can see it. I think the struggle that most have, they can't see the issue. I equate it to what I improve is their sensory perception. Everybody knows when you open up the refrigerator, you could smell something and said, wow, there's something rotten in the refrigerator. I think by the time I get through with them, they can say, oh, I smell something rotten, and it's the grapefruit in the bottom right-hand corner. I can point those things out. And then we need to work on it. Obviously, this isn't, once you know the numbers, I joke a lot about it, being able to say sometimes I expose the boogeyman. right? That's a struggle, right? With most is that, it's like, oh, now look at it. I'm afraid to look at it.
Give me examples of the boogeyman. Is it LO comp? Is it capacities in the back room? Too much, too little? What are some examples of the boogeyman? So someone understands their finances, they get some education, and now the boogeyman's exposed. What are some of those that you've seen in your experience?
I think that it's very similar to getting on a scale, right? How am I doing in managing my weight, right? You get on a scale, and some people are afraid to get on the scale because they're afraid of what they're going to see, right? So in this situation, well, I can tell you that usually what happens when people do get us involved in converting that P&L in that branch profitability academy, they say, I should have done this years ago. No different than, I should have changed my diet years ago. So I think it's a matter of people just don't, they don't want to look at reality, and you don't get to negotiate with math, right? The numbers are the numbers, right? So there's no negotiating with the math part. It's real.
Yeah, that's a good one. No negotiating with math. Here's number 3, ChatGPT's response to challenges, with your branch managers in the mortgage industry and what their numbers. Here's number 3 is a focus on sales over finances. And before I finish the sentence, how spot on is that, right? A lot of these top producers come over and have to manage the branch or, take leadership roles as people do progress in their careers. But again, focus on sales over finances. Mortgage branch managers are often focused on generating revenue through sales, which can distract them from learning about the financial side of the business. Is that what you see? A typical successful person in the industry, a salesperson is promoted and has to, take on more responsibility. And again, it's not in their wheelhouse. This is the challenge from the ChatGPT response.
The myth, let me tell you what the myth I think is out there, and then I'll tell you why I think it's that way. I think people think they can go out and generate loans, and they do more loans, and that'll fix your P&L. To a certain extent, that's true. Most of the time, it's not. If the model's broken, doing more loans will not fix a broken model. It'll just accentuate some of the problems that are with it. Let me give you some examples. If you're suffering, and I'm getting technical here for people who have not been through our program, the top number is revenue. If you're struggling with revenue and you take into consideration top business blood pressure, the bottom business blood pressure number is expenses, and then you got LO comp. When you take A minus B minus C, if there's no money left over at the end, you can't just go do more loans, because what's going to happen is going to be more top input is going to generate more negative output. So you can't fix the P&L by just doing that. And I think it's the difficulty is, I still remember being at Todd Duncan events, and I was always struggling with the fact that says, wow, there's $100 million producer on there. Nobody talks about how profitable are they, what a great organization do they run, how much pull through do they have with loans, do they close everything that they write, things of that nature, and do they have 16 assistants on their team, which generates a whole lot of expense for us. That's the struggle, right? And I think it's a matter of the measurement device. The P&L today is too complex that nobody can stab at a number here to be able to say, hey, listen, we want you to be profitable. How profitable? What's normal? And I think our ability to be able to show everybody's to be able to look at a similar sized branch and say, hey, this branch did $4 million this month. They made $13,000 and I lost $4,000. How did they do it? What was the change? And everybody's in the same format. All companies, all branches, broker, banker, mega bankers, whatever it is, are in the same 8 key performance indicators. So we can look at one and we can see it and we can say, oh, wow, here's the problem right here. Look at how much more revenue they generated from this. And the difficulty is when I work one-on-one with an organization, I call it back up the truck mentality. Once they fix the model that A minus B minus C equals D, and D is positive, go get more loans, 100%. But you got to fix the model. You can't just say throw throw loans at the problem. And sometimes people get drunk on production. They get drunk on, high five me, I'm a top producer. I'm in the top 1%. Well, if your P&L sucks, whether that's you personally or you're pushing it up to the corporation, doesn't help.
I want to ask you a little bit more on one of those things. So you're saying, without understanding the financials in depth and really what's going on with all of that information, just going and getting more loans is not necessarily the solution?
Correct. If you're getting loans, if the guy or girl who's making $14,000 last month, you can look at their numbers and you can see why they're making $14,000. Again, top number minus the bottom number equals CPI minus LO comp is the rest of the revenue. It's simple, right? But now all of a sudden it says, now we got to work on it to be able to say, okay, how do I get my number up from 200 to 243? And that's the struggle. Well, let's dissect that. And we go through that in our monthly calls to be able to just take a P&L and say, let's look at this and see how we can improve your top number. Your issue is just a top number. You're paying out the right comp. You've got your costs under control. You just don't have enough revenue coming in at the top. And we've got a lot of tips and a lot of, in that one module, it's how to increase the top number. And we spend an hour on it.
Yeah, here's the ChatGPT response to number 3. So it says, no access to financial information. Give branch managers access to relevant financial information. And I'm going to pause there because there's more to say, but relevant financial information. There's a lot there. You just said it's complex, right, Tom? Relevant, which is those KPIs and really understanding those numbers. And we won't go in depth on how that's broken down. We do that in a webinar that we do that's free and anybody can actually listen in. But relevant financial information. Now I'll finish it and I'll let you respond. Such as monthly P&L statements, balance sheets, and cash flow statements. This information can be presented in regular reports through an online portal. So again, tell me how ChatGPT kind of combines with what you do and you offer.
Well, it's just a matter of I think that one of the breakthroughs for us was for the branch manager to input their own information. We used to do it for them. So they plug it in, they see it, and they say, okay, here's where I'm at. And the interesting thing is the takeaway when they spit it out, they look at it and now they can compare how they do compared to last month. It's a batting average, right? It's a matter of you're measuring something that is crucial to running a business. Whether that's if you have P&L responsibility, one of two things happen. You either get part of the P&L or all of it in a scenario, or you're passing that money up to the corporation, or you're passing the loss up to the organization as well. So you're a far better branch manager if you have the responsibility of the P&L, and you've just got to take responsibility for it. I think that's the issue. Yes, sometimes loans will help, especially when you get to a down market, especially when you get to the point where I'm doing 2 loans and I was used to doing 20. That's going to have a huge effect. But to go from 10 to 12, you'll see a little bit of an effect of it reducing your per loan expense. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be that great. It's going to be a minor improvement, and you'll see it. It's interesting. The huge takeaway for me, I live vicariously through others because I don't have a branch today. Yeah. So I get to see their numbers.
You did it and learned it. Now you get to help others. So here's, again, we're doing the top 10 reasons why a mortgage branch manager may not have an understanding of the P&L statements, no fault of their own. Number 4, prioritizing daily operations. Managers may prioritize daily operational tasks over financial analysis, leaving little time to focus on financial statements. You talk about something called Got a Minute Club, right? I think if I'm a new branch manager or I'm a longtime branch manager, there's a lot of things. You're the boss. Things are coming your way. And if you don't prioritize, things could deteriorate. Talk about that being the problem, and then Tom Ward's response, and we'll go to ChatGPT's combined response.
I say it's 10th on a 9-priority list, right? I was a part of Building Champions program called Master's Coach for years, way back when Daniel Harkavy and Bill Hart and all those guys were, Steve Scanlon and those guys were running it. And the interesting thing, I still remember this. I could probably take you to the place I was standing when Daniel said it, and it talks about we got to start working on the business, not in the business, right? So part of the financial side is on the business, right? It's building that profitability platform that will stand alone, that you could back up the truck and go do that. When you're in the business, you're constantly fighting fires. That's why I say 10th on a 9 priority list. The Got a Minute Club, Joe's got a problem with the file here, and it's the end of the month, and we're scrambling, and I had a processor sick today, and all those things that you still have to be able to do to be able to run the branch. I'm a huge believer in John Maxwell, and John was always to the point where you needed to be able to allocate your day, and part of that is allocating. You just got to be able to prioritize. I don't care if it's an hour. You've got to prioritize what to look at that P&L. And trust me, when you look at it in an A key performance indicator, you'll look at that compared to the rest of the months that you've had, and you say, holy cow, I'm knocking it out of the park. Little bitty tweaks. It doesn't take much. When you're doing $10 million or $5 million a month, man, if I can, I think we use the equation in our website, talking about if I can improve I call it CPI, which is just your revenue minus your expenses, not LO comp, equals something we call CPI. If I can improve your CPI by 10 basis points and you're doing $2 million a month, which is $24 million a year, it's $24,000 in your pocket. 24 grand in today's market, it's all the money in the world. And you start looking at this and be able to say 24,000, I can increase that. I just play with me for a year, right? And just do what I say and follow along, and you got to do the work. 10 basis points is nothing at the end of 12 months for these guys and girls.
Let me respond with ChatGPT's number 4 response. And again, similar in output: inaccurate or incomplete financial information. Ensure that financial information is accurate and up to date by implementing proper accounting procedures and internal controls. Provide training on financial data analysis to enable managers to identify and address errors. I think it's some of the same thing, right? We need to educate. We need to train. We need to. When I say we, it's all of our responsibility as a branch manager to make sure we are educated, we are trained, and we have accurate, up-to-date accounting. Don't you talk about, and maybe some of the practices that you teach, is having those numbers days after the month ends, real time. Tell us about accurate information, up-to-date, training on financial analysis, things like that.
I think technology's taken on a whole new role with companies today, and I think there's a far better. They're getting the financials out far faster than they ever have before. But if you're not, it doesn't do you any good. This market changes too fast. You could, if your financials are 2 or 3 months delayed, you could be trying to fix something that doesn't need to be fixed, or should have been fixed 2 months ago. Or maybe you're not even in business 2 months from now because you didn't fix it. So real time is important. When I say real time, it doesn't necessarily have to be. When I ran Majestic Mortgage, I told people that they could I need to see the numbers, and I'll give you the mulligan to make in-flight corrections a little bit later in that month, but I need to see the numbers. And that gave calm to the accounting people. Today's day and age, I think some companies are getting P&Ls daily. So with some of the software that's out there, you have the ability to be able to do that.
Why is it important to get the numbers right away and give them an in-flight kind of correction later on? What changes, what adjustments can you make when you have the numbers that quick?
Perfect example is when a composite. Your revenue number is a composite of all the loan officers that are running in your branch. So you can see whether Susie or Jim is really the problem with why your number is so low. When we troubleshoot that, we look at a composite of 243 basis points. I keep using that number. 243 basis points is a composite of all the loans that closed that month, but you're going to look at Susie and Jim and Mary and Stan and all these other people. And when you break that down into the loans they closed, you can now see what their batting average is, right? If John is constantly doing loans at 170 because he's asking for concessions all the time, eventually you're going to look at this and say, John is causing my number to be too low. You got to make some decisions. Either John's got to have a decision. That's the struggle with LO Comp today. is the LO still makes the same amount of money. That's the whole LO concept, right? No matter how much money you bring in, you can fix a rate sheet. But if they discount, you still have to pay them 100 basis points, 150 basis points, whatever it is, no matter how much revenue they bring in. It's your job to be able to make sure. Now, that could be a training issue. John just doesn't know how to sell value in a price-based world, right? We all think we're in a price-based world today. I think it's the opposite today.
Add in value. No, that's good because you can make those adjustments right away when you have that information. So again, we're on number 5, top 10 reasons why a mortgage branch manager may not have an understanding of the P&L financials, and really not to their own fault. Number 5, limited access to financial data. In some cases, managers may not have access to the financial data they need to fully understand the P&L. And it's some of the same thing, but
I think we covered that, right? Because it's the timing of the data, right? It's just a matter of when do you need that. So I think we kind of combine that in 4 and 5.
Yeah, and it's important. And here's the answer from 5. Poor financial planning. Encourage branch managers to develop financial plans and budgets based on realistic revenue and expense projections. Offer support and guidance in creating and monitoring these plans. So again, it's having the tools, understanding, I think you just hit it a little bit there, is having the numbers fast, maybe up to date in today's accounting marketplace, but why that's all important. Let's do this because we have our top 10. We're going to continue this conversation on the next podcast and continue from 6 to 10 to continue to give everybody kind of this combination of, how Tom Ward has put these prompts, we did in ChatGPT, and how the response is coming from AI and offering guidance on becoming, I guess, more fiscally responsible, understanding your numbers. So we'll continue that conversation next time. Sound good, Tom?
Awesome. I can tell you that the AI and the ChatGPT, I was probably in the ChatGPT Anonymous Club, right? Didn't want to talk about it.
But it's great because everybody, I think it is. It's people say it's. I think there was they just reports left and right every day on how it's something that is scary, fearful. But I think what we found here is we embraced it, and I would say what we've been able to do here and get this is and talk about this maybe briefly because you've been a top producer yourself. You run your own company. How an assistant, and I'll just call it an assistant because it's artificial intelligence that can give you assistance in many of the activities you're doing today, right? From marketing to asking questions on the financial side, how ChatGPT and this AI piece can really help give you more capacity as a small business owner.
It improves your bandwidth, right? You usually I would have to go outside and buy that, right, from somebody, or hire a person to be able to handle that for me, right? And now it's a matter of, and I think in my case, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I think in my case, it just stimulates my brain, right? It's all of a sudden, it's like, wow, that's pretty, and I think it gives me confidence to know that some AI out there is probably pretty close to what I've been saying for years, right? And it's just a matter of, is that part of it? I think there's a confidence level that it gives you that you could look at this and any of the great marketing people that are out there, Robert Stover taught me many years ago, test. I mean, any of those guys, Dan Kennedy, one of the greatest marketers in the world, talk about split testing. Try this. I mean, many a time I've looked at something and said, this is going to be the winner. And it was like 10% and the other one was 90. It's like, I would have never thought that somebody would respond to that. So I think that kind of opens up your eyes a little bit and just increasing your bandwidth without your expense. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, I think it is definitely an enhancement to your business. All right, we'll continue this conversation next time. Thanks, Tom.